In the world of websites, hosting is the most essential component of your web domain. A host is where your website physically lives. This is the location of the server that your site files live on. Essentially, this is where all of your files for your site will be located. This is exactly where the user has to go in order to see what is live on your website. This includes all WordPress installs. All websites require a host. They don't all require the same host, but they are essential to all websites. Your host provides you with the physical memory or the space, as well as the bandwidth allowed for your website. Bandwidth is effectively every time the site is loaded, it consumes server resources and memory, hence bandwidth. Your host will allow you a certain amount of bandwidth per month. This is very similar to how an internet plan works. Every host will have a different amount of bandwidth per plan that they allow you to have. In general, it's usually the best to find a host with an adequate bandwidth for the site traffic that you expect for your web domain. You can always upgrade your host when you need to, your hosting plan. All domain names need hosting. You need to host your domain name on a host and point your DNS records to that host. So in the previous video, we talked about domain name servers, domain name systems. You need to point your DNS records to your host in order for your site to go live. The user needs to know where those files are in order for the internet browser to find exactly where those files are living, where they're being pulled from. And that's usually based on IP address. There are several examples of hosts. There's HostGator, GoDaddy, Rackspace, Bluehost, SiteGround, WP Engine, which is a WP specific or WordPress specific host. They only work with WordPress hosting, so they've maximized the efficiency of their hosting platform specifically for WordPress. It comes with a lot of pre-built features that are very neat. There are multiple kinds of hosting you can get. In general, they're divided into two categories, shared and private. Shared hosting can be problematic with bandwidth. It's ideal for low traffic or single install sites. So if you have just one website or maybe a couple websites that you want to host, shared hosting is usually ideal. It's a lot less expensive than other kinds of hosting versus private, but it does have its limitations. If you plan on running a full site environment with a lot of traffic on a shared environment, it's going to be very difficult for you to scale that type of a website or business. You'd probably want to look at a VPS. Now that stands for Virtual Private Server. This is great for larger sites or multiple sites that require guaranteed bandwidth. You're guaranteed the bandwidth for your VPS. In other words, you own a particular area of that server. It's not a full rack, but it's a virtualized area of that server, and you have guaranteed bandwidth. You don't share it with any other neighbors. In a shared environment, you may share it with dozens, if not hundreds, of neighbors. You really don't know how they've divided up their server host environment. So it's very important for you to decide which is going to be the most ideal situation for you. Finally, the largest and most advanced level of hosting is called dedicated. This is really for those sites who have a lot of bandwidth and require a lot more resources than the general website. You can host as many websites on this kind of a platform as you'd like, but you effectively own the entire server or a rack within that server. It's dedicated to you, meaning it's not virtualized. It's a physical environment that you have guaranteed bandwidth and guaranteed resources allotted to your web domains.